Ghost in the Mechanic by Sarah Dobbs. The girls of Cherrybrook Hill, gossiping round Millie's ices after Sunday school in pastel ankle socks and upside-down cupcake skirts, whispered that he was pretty. The townsfolk, spitting in the sawdust floor of Sam's bar as he shuffled past, shook their heads and called him dumb. But nobody called him by his real name, because they didn't want to know it anymore. Yet that was Mickey Joe, all right. Pretty and dumb. And for reasons he didn't want to go into, especially with himself, he was flat happy with that. It meant nobody except Mung got into his business. Well, him and the broken girl who snuck out her grave and called to him atop Cherrybrook Hill, whispering his name on the dust wind. When no one else could figure how to trick their gasping tractors into breathing regular, farmers sucked in air through cobblestone teeth and said, "Looks like it's the yard for you, girl." And Mickey Joe would trail up to the chicken wire gates of his yard. He would stop, 2 paces from the wire, hook oily thumbs in the bib pockets of his dungarees, and wait for Mung to sit, ass on dust. Viewed from above, tractor, farmer, Mickey Joe, and Mung were the pegs of a rectangle. Without Mung, Mickey Joe would have been forced to position himself in an isosceles triangle. He wasn't fond of triangles, all knife edges and imbalance. "You think you can put her right for me, boy?" the farmer would say. Mickey Joe might not look up. The farmer would look at Mung. If Mung growled and bared that yellow smile, Mickey Joe would trail back into the yard. If Mung did not growl, Mickey Joe would nod and the farmer would go on his way. When the dust clouds woken by the farmer's footsteps slept once more, Mickey Joe would get to work, as he did that day. His body found a simple beauty in jigsawing engines back to working. But tractors now, he loved them the best. They were easy to bring back to life. To Mickey Joe, each part had a number. He looked at them and saw puzzle shapes of metal formulas to be solved. If it was missing, replace it or add something up to compensate temporarily. If the numbers were off, recalibrate equals fixed. After, the machines would blare around cornfields like brothers roughhousing over some soon-forgotten quarrel, like Mickey Joe and Donovan, the friend he'd once called a brother. Though likely thing was, he and Donovan weren't never forgetting their quarrel. Mickey Joe straightened. Trouble. It tugged at his ordered contentment, frayed his organized illusion. Something did not fit. He put down the wrench and wrung his fingers on a greasy rag, hunkered on the ground. He propped his back against the tractor wheel. Mung eyeballed Mickey Joe from the gates the farmer had left ajar. The dirt looked dark. Mung had just took a piss. "Sure thing, Mung. I gotcha. I'm trying." Mickey Joe released a held breath. It was the damned open gates what had gone and done it. See, in a world full of angles, guy wants to keep things neat. Should have closed the gates. Somebody turned up the sun. Barely imperceptible, but a definite shift. The sunlight, which had been happy making constellations on the scrap awaiting reincarnation, was up to something new. Tools lost their definition, trees lost their shadow. The lot flattened out. Not Mickey Joe's anymore, just dust with no purpose. It stretched on forever, without any concept of what forever meant. He placed one palm on the tractor tire and one to the earth. The dizziness retreated. The shadows locked back. Mung snuffled at his own piss stain. Mickey Joe went on, scraping the grease off each finger with the rag. The sensation reminded him the world had popped back. His fingers had once belonged to a boy who had stroked a girl's face atop Cherrybrook Hill. "I dare you." "No, I dare you." "I hold your feet. You reach over. You've longer arms." "No, I hold your feet. You're lightest. But it is just a flower, Daisy." Exactly, Mickey Joe, a daisy. In winter, come on, I'll hold you. No, I'll hold you. Mung growled. Mickey Joe should have predicted the probability, the ratio of her weight to his strength. A louder growl. The noise brought Mickey Joe back to the yard. I hear you, Mutt. But the memories were always at his heels, like Mung. A bark like a thunderclap. I'm hanging in there, Mung, don't be worrying. But he wasn't hanging in there. Something had slipped out of kilter, something he could not recalibrate or replace. Numbers that refused to be knit and ordered. Something told him he wouldn't resist the song from the cliff top tonight. He would go back to Cherrybrook Hill and face what he had done. That's that, then. No sense holding off. Mung raised rheumy eyes. Only when Mickey Joe swung the gate shut, pretending to leave without him, did the dog hobble forward. The boy pushed the gate back, allowing for Mung before he locked up. There was no real need. Folks can't steal what ain't there, but such was his habit. Mickey Joe's slow, determined pace got him about half a yard up the dirt path when he stopped. He put his weight on one hip, slung a look over his shoulder, eyebrow up, to check on Mung's progress. The dog investigated the nearest tumbleweed. It only moved forward once Mickey Joe had it on. The boy often wondered whether the dog would still follow if he didn't stop and check. But he always stopped and checked. Dust. At first it was just a rumour, a whisper on the thickening air. In a dwindling farming province such as Cherrybrook, where the dust ravaged crops and tore away topsoil, Mickey Joe was about the only fella who enjoyed the storms. He could do nothing to stop 'em, so would stand out in his yard like a lightning rod and brace the dust rage. He imagined that the dust told him tales of faraway plains, pasts and futures, that he and Daisy were just a couple of particles of dust among countless. But that afternoon Mickey Joe got mad. See, as the whisper grew to thunder, and the thunder roared like a blown transmission, it became clear he wouldn't make it to the hilltop. Mickey Joe tailed back to the yard. He took the screen door off its hinges and bolted the other behind him. When Mung finally made it home, Mickey Joe thought the dog would just tuck up in the porch. In the kitchen, Mickey Joe stabbed at a supper of chicken and potato, her song swirling round his skull like dust in a basin. He pinched the candle out, counted down to sleep. In the morning, the air retained the dust. It smelled of sulphur and potatoes and felt thicker than usual. Mickey Joe scratched his chest and, barefoot, crossed the desert the dust had made of his yard. He slopped out last night's meal for Mung's breakfast. Stopped dead. He closed the gate. Mung's lifeless body lay half-hidden under layers of dust. He hadn't sought cover anywhere else. Not in the old bomb shelter just across the way. Not even down the rabbit holes he liked to scrape out. He just waited. Waited for Mickey Joe to come and open the gate. Sam's bower did not welcome the newcomer. Men sat in the comfortable dark, more than ready to forget the drought and the decrepit harvest. Though empty, the place remained stubbornly full. But Mickey Joe came in anyways, and Sam wordlessly set a beer before him. The room would adjust. "Hey, boy, you take your chin off of your chest every once in a while. You might bother yourself to come and apologize to us all." "Easy, Don," Sam said. Mickey Joe supped his drink. "What's the matter, boy, huh? Break your own voice day you broke my sister's neck." Sam leaned his elbows on the bar. "Now listen here, Don, I get your meaning, but I ain't itching for any more trouble from you." Mickey Joe barely heard Sam's words. The room buckled in on him. Donovan's anger had a shape, a spewing web of numeric strings, unsystematic, pulsing, random. Mickey Joe wished the room was full of tens. 10 was faithful, sturdy, fundamental. There were no 10s in Donovan. Nausea spider-crawled up the walls of Mickey Joe's stomach. Blinking, he tried to sort a pattern in the anger, some harmony or rhythm. But the numbers came too fast. Mickey Joe's fingers twitched, counting, if he could just figure the equations, factor it down, make it manageable, breathable. But the numbers resisted, doubled, spliced. Daisy's dead, and here you are walking round like you're the one was wronged. Mickey Joe crossed his arms over his face, as if that could deflect the chaos. But it was behind his eyelids. Everything was out of balance. "So I know why she don't speak," Donovan said. "Common trait with the dead tends to be. But what's your problem? Somebody dropped you off a hill and all?" Mickey Joe saw the flicker in Donovan's jaw, the shake of his head. Donovan fell blank again. Not even a sea of O's, just empty zeros. Mickey Joe staggered out of Sam's bar. His tornado steps blew him, finally, to the epicenter of all his troubles. Daisy Morris waited on top of Cherrybrook Hill. Arms across her chest, she tapped her sandals on the grass. "Well, what do you know, Mickey Joe? Why ain't you ever been round to see me? I've been after talking with you for a long while." Mickey Joe saw different daisies, all in the same face. There was the girl he had known, the woman she might have been, and the one whose mama had had to put her in the ground that winter. Mickey Joe sank to his knees. Dust ground the backs of them like dirt in gears. His body chugged with sobs, his tears thick as oil. "I wish I could fix you." All three images of Daisy stepped forward. She shimmered like a heat wave, each version ghosting in and out. "I ain't broken, dummy," she said. Mickey Joe closed his eyes, thought he could see the world in rows of tens, shapes, not squares, circles. He was sure he felt a kiss press his forehead. The words, "And you ain't neither." Mickey Joe looked up. Daisy was gone, her kiss drying. He thought he heard a growl, but it was only thunder. A raindrop plinked on his forehead, dead center. He healed the tears from his face, and his skin felt raw, but clean. Mickey Joe stood, descended from atop Cherrybrook Hill. He had a long trek ahead of him to the Morris farm. When finally he made it, Donovan stood like a statue behind the screen door, and Mickey Joe heard Mrs. Morris holler out, "Who was it?" And Donovan said, slow, "It's Mickey Joe, Mama." It started to hiss with rain. Beneath the rain, Mickey Joe knew the dust was still there, would always be there. It would carry tales to faraway plains, pasts and futures, hinting of a girl who snuck out of her grave and called out his name atop Cherrybrook Hill, singing, "Mickey Joe, Mickey Joe," on the dust wind. For the first time in a long time, Mickey Joe had something to say.
Ghost in the Mechanic by Sarah Dobbs was read by Claire Lawrence. The producer was Gemma Jenkins.